Hey everyone, thanks for coming. Before we get started, make sure you have something to write with and something to write on. There's going to be some questions I'm sure some of you are going to have as we go through these first two parts, and then we're going to have a Q&A session as the final part. So I want you to be able to remember them. The other thing I want you to be able to do is I'm going to ask some questions throughout this, and I want you to be able to go back and reference them when we're done and be able to compare the difference in what those numbers are and what you think it costs to run your business and what it actually is going to cost to run your business once we get through this. Anyway, my name's Sean Benetin. I've been in this industry since 1987. Started working at a professional shop straight out of high school. I started my company, Millwork and More, in 1996. And just about 5 years ago, I started a construction management company that works in tandem with Millwork and More. Our market's northern New Jersey. We do work in the area around that, but we won't install there. Most of our work is residential, what would be considered luxury or high end, whatever words you want to use. We do some commercial work, but that commercial work is typically for owner-based businesses for the residents that we work on. We do not get into any kind of government work or high production, low number, prevailing wage stuff. So with that said, that's my background, and you might be asking exactly what my qualifications are for presenting a seminar. My qualifications are a ridiculous amount of mistakes. I've been in this industry for over 30 years, but you'll notice in the description of what I've done, I have not gone to business school. I barely graduated high school, not because of lack of intelligence, but just because of lack of effort. I didn't care about it once I decided I was going to get into this industry. And I started my business unplanned when the company, it was probably like the fourth or fifth company I was working for in 1996, they went out of business. And so I dove in headfirst, and I'm sure there's probably going to be a similar story, maybe not the exact story, but a similar story with not having a business background for the majority of people here. In addition to not having that kind of experience, I have a couple of personality traits that don't work too well together. And one of them is I am extremely impulsive in decision making. When I make my mind up on something, I will immediately go after it and not think through all the ramifications. I'm a lot better with that now because I'm aware of it. The other thing about me is I'm fickle, and I'm very quick to make decisions, but I am also very quick to change them after the fact. So that combination of personality traits and my lack of business background, those are my qualifications. So there are two main reasons I went through that explanation of what my background is. The first is I'm going to be using examples of dumb things I've done through the years and the financial lessons I've learned through them, so you can apply them to your own business. The second part of that explanation is so you understand that no matter what your background is, no matter how big or small your company is, no matter how much money you have made or lost up to this point, with the right information, you can turn things around immediately. And that's the hope I have for all the information I'm going to give to you, and I hope it works well. And finally, the last reason for that explanation is we could have named the seminar 1001 Mistakes, but I don't think it would have marketed as well. So grab that pen and paper or whatever, your Word doc, and I want you to write a couple answers down to these questions. What is your currently hourly rate or rates? Some shops are going to break out different rates for different departments, engineering, production, install. You may have different hourly rates, or you may average them all out and have one hourly rate. That's what I do. It doesn't matter which way you do it. It just matters that you do it and that those hourly rates are correct. So write that down. That's for your own information. Don't be honest with yourself. You're the only person that's going to see these numbers. The next question is, what is your minimum break even for the year, for the month, and for the week? And for this question here, a week, how many weeks in a year would be considered 48 weeks? 4 weeks per month average. So either all those answers or just one of them. It doesn't make a difference. But what do you think, or what do you know your minimum break even is every year? And that is not including a profit. The next question there is how much do you pay yourself as an employee of your company? I can't see you all right now, but I know a lot of you aren't going to have an answer for this because you don't actually set a specific amount for yourself, and that's kind of the point of this question here. But anyway, write down, what do you currently pay yourself as an employee? There's a difference between owning the company, excuse me, and what you do working in the company as an employee of the company. Those are two separate things. So what do you pay yourself? And the last question is, what is the total investment in your company? If you had to get up and running to exactly where you are today and had to start from scratch, what would your total investment cost be? And that would be for everything in your operation currently. Everything you need to know to run this business or any business you may be in is going to fall into three basic categories. And those three categories are things that you know. There are going to be things that you don't know, but you should know. And then there's going to be things that you don't even know that you don't even know. And what I mean by that is things that you do know, what you know. These are going to be your everyday things, the experiences you've had, the lessons you have learned, whether either doing things right or doing things wrong, that you know already. Things that you're in complete control of. The second category is going to be things that you don't know but you should. Lessons you've learned all along the way, and lessons that you haven't learned yet that you should know, that you need to pre-plan for. And you're not in 100% control of that until you apply yourself, until you sit down and think about what you don't know and how you can plan for it and how you can train for it and how you can make those things profitable and not be a negative financial impact to your business. The last category, the unicorn, is going to be what you don't know you don't know. These are things that you haven't experienced yet. It would be extremely difficult to anticipate coming up as being a problem, or even getting that lesson learned from some other shop owner. There's no mistake that I've made or you've made or any other shop owner has made that one of us hasn't made before, and that's the whole point of sharing all this information. So with that said, what we want to do, the whole idea is we want to make sure that we go over everything that you do know, how to be in 100% control of that, things that you don't know but you should know, how do we plan for and prepare and move those things towards the categories of what you know so it can be profitable, and try to lay out every possible scenario, not everyone, but as many possible scenarios, but the mindset of how to prepare, how to react as quick and as best as possible to those scenarios that are completely out of your control, and how do you adapt to them. So this year, the name of the seminar is called The Art of Pricing Profitably. The first sections we're going to go over is going to be the scientific part of it, the things that are set in stone, the certain knowns that we all have. The difference between the way that you typically track your numbers and how we're going to explain them here are going to be different. And what I mean by that is typically end of year or quarterly, whatever, when you're doing your taxes and you go through and you fill out your 1040s and you do your Schedule Cs and you figure out what your costs are and what's left over and all that kind of stuff. That is for tax purposes, but it is not I don't want to say it's not an accurate way to take a look at things, but you need to break the numbers out differently to have a true understanding of what it costs to run your business. And most importantly, what this right here is the fixed pre-sale operating expenses are. What does it take to run your business before you hire your first employee or make your first sale? If you were to be open but have no work in and no employees, there's still a cost to open the doors first thing. The reason this is so important is you need to be prepared for things that are out of your control. Cycles in the market, how much volume there's going to be, and shutdowns like hurricanes or snow outages, or most recently, how about a pandemic completely unplanned for? So we're not going to spend a tremendous amount of time on this, but we're going to go through it just so you have a full understanding of it. There will be a spreadsheet sent out to you guys if you don't already have it, where you can plug these numbers in. So you don't need to take a whole lot of notes. Just remember what we're talking about here. And before we have the Q&A session and after the fact, you're going to have this spreadsheet that I made for your own use that you can put your own numbers in. This is just examples. This is actually from my company from, I think this is either 2 or 3 years ago that I put this together. So the numbers are slightly different right now. So for me, excuse me, I rent a building. Some of you are going to own your building, but you still need to account for those costs. So currently my rent is $75,000 a year, $62.50 a month. Liability and asset coverage is what the cost is. That's all my insurances, excluding payroll insurance and auto insurance. Maintenance of the building, even though my lease is triple net, which means that pays for the rent, it pays for the portion of the property tax, and it pays for maintenance of the outside of the building. There are still maintenance items inside the building that we're going to take care of, small stuff that's going to accumulate over time. Before we get on to license and permits, if you currently own a building or plan on buying a building, you have to put in numbers, if you're not currently doing them, what you would pay yourself. You need to be able to separate your person and the employee, the business and your assets. If you own the building should be in your personal name or some other, some other LLC or another business, a holding company that owns it, and your business should be paying rent to that entity or yourself at what the current market rate is. If you don't account for that, if you're not doing that, you may be thinking that, well, you're going to have a competitive advantage because you can bid jobs for less and get them, have a more competitive advantage to close more sales, but you're not helping anybody. You're only hurting yourself. You're helping the client, but they don't care about that stuff. They don't care about helping you. They're not going to care about that explanation. And you're only hurting yourself. If you have a building and you do not pay yourself rent for it, your landlord is an idiot and your tenant is screwing you. So make sure you account for those costs there. Business license, every state or every province, I'm not sure where everybody is from. There's different licenses. Regular business license in New Jersey is 150. We get, it's actually now twice a year, fire inspections, once a year just for the regular fire extinguishers around the shop, but we also have a spray booth, 1,000 square foot spray booth, and that gets inspected twice a year. Next is utilities, and you'll notice I have stars on here. Remember, we're talking about pre-sale operating expenses. So even though your shop may not be open, you may not be producing stuff, the lights are still on, the heat still may be on, you still got to keep the minimum amount of utilities running so pipes don't freeze and that kind of stuff. And the reality is you should be, unless you physically can't get there to work, you should still be, even if you don't have sales, you should still be trying to push sales through. So you would be there doing that kind of stuff. Electric bill is going to go up dramatically when you're in production. That's why that's noted. Same thing goes for heat, oil and gas. Same scenario. There's a minimum temperature you're going to keep in the shop, high or low, and then there's going to be what it costs to produce product and putting up heat. I mentioned I have a spray booth. We're in the Northeast. We have a 1,000 square foot spray booth. There's actually 2 booths in one room with a 750,000 BTU hot air makeup system. So when we're spraying in the middle of winter, our gas bill skyrockets through there. Security system, should you have it? I shouldn't have told you that. I do have a security, but I have security cameras, but I don't pay somebody to service that. It just goes to me. There's a dumpster fee. There's going to be the minimum charge that they're going to come and take it. Obviously, this number is going to go up as you're producing more waste. Communications, phones, faxes really aren't even in play anymore. Cell phones, web hosting, internet access. These are your yearly cost altogether. Some people are going to have company issued equipment, company issued phones. If you work out of an office or you work out of your house and you're sharing those things, you would want to break out the percentage use from personal and business and put those numbers in here. Next category is going to be vehicles. Vehicles is the one category where there are actually going to be 3 different costs that need to be broken out separately. The first cost here, the fixed pre-sale operating expenses are after you purchase the vehicle. If you're not using your vehicles, but they're still sitting there, you still need to have your vehicle insured. You still need to register it annually. And same, like I was saying, if you don't have business, hopefully you should be, if you're not, out there beating the streets doing sales. So there's going to be cost per mile of operating expenses. Like everything else, once production goes up, registration and insurance is going to remain the same, but your mileage is going to go way up, obviously. You hope so. Association, the basic CMA, just like we have here, whatever other associations you're going to for networking or educating yourself, specialty training courses, finishing courses, woodworking courses. Software maintenance costs. Same thing with software. There's a combination now. A lot of stuff is subscriptions, but there are a lot of softwares that there's the initial purchase costs and then there are annual maintenance costs to them. And a lot of things are, like I said, are now going subscription. So there's actually no upfront costs. It's just the yearly maintenance costs. Whatever those softwares are, whether they be accounting software or design software, you'd want to put those numbers in here. AutoCAD or Cabinet Vision, any of those specialty programs. Professional services. Your lawyer, accountant, bookkeeping, marketing. Everybody has an accountant or bookkeeper or does it in-house, whatever. It's going to be part of your salary if it is. For those of you who have not had the fortune yet the luck to have a lawyer, you need to put something in there. I've been now in business for whatever it is, over 20 years. And there are going to be times when something's going to come up. I've been fortunate. There's only been 2 different occasions that I've needed to have a lawyer. But the first time it happened, the first time I needed a lawyer, which was probably about 15 years ago, I wasn't accounting for lawyers, any kind of lawyer expenses. So when the time come, it was difficult for me to pull the money together, not only because I wasn't accounting for it, but the reason I had to hire lawyers because I didn't get paid. So it was a double whammy there. So you need to put those numbers in here. You need to put something in to account for any kind of unexpected things or contract changes, something like that. Account bookkeeping, pretty straightforward. Marketing, everybody does different advertising and marketing. Right now, personally, I haven't been doing a whole lot just because being in business as many years as I do have a lot of connections from networking. But you still need to account for it. Just because I'm fortunate right now, just because, knock on wood, I'm fortunate enough to have a lot of business, it doesn't mean there's going to be some kind of cycle that's going to happen. where I need to be prepared for that. And you need to be marketing yourself not when you're slow, but when you're busy. And you need to have those numbers in there. These other expenses here, owner's workers' comp and or disability. So some of these, let's see, my company is an LLC. So if you are a C Corp or an S Corp, if you're a corporation, these expenses would be part of the write-off. So I'm an LLC, I'm a pass-through company. So workman's comp is part of my package. I'm broken out separately from my employees. I'm an employee of my company. My employees go through a payroll service, which I'll get into. Owner's life insurance. So whether or not you have life insurance for your personal family that's your personal business or your prerogative, whatever you want to do. But on top of whatever it is to make sure that you have your family set up should you pass away before your time, before your family's financially able to handle living without you, you need to take a look at your business the same way and what that impact would be on your family or whoever would be taking over the business. Whether you have an exit strategy or not, there's still going to be things that need to happen to close out your business, jobs that are open that need to be closed out, money that needs to be collected. You need to, whatever your plan is, you need to have something in line that's going to cover your costs. For me, I have a $500,000 insurance policy specifically for the business to run my business for 6 months. So there's no pressure for collections and billing to happen to all the clients. It gives my personnel and my wife time to close out the business or sell it or whatever they're going to do and not have to worry about cash flow and give them the time to close everything out completely. This is going back to what I was talking about, doing your accounting at the end of the year for filing your taxes. So when you're a pass-through company, your owner's life insurance would not be a write-off for the business, but it is. It does need to be accounted for and charged, figured into your costing. Last thing is going to be owner health. Up until just a couple of years ago, health insurance for myself and all my employees was run through my company. I switched out of my company several years back when my wife got a postal job with an excellent health plan, which I immediately jumped on. But just like my example of owning a building and needing to pay yourself, even though I get health insurance through my spouse, doesn't mean that my business should not account for that. I am not going to gain an advantage by not billing clients for that cost. It should be in there. Every business, if I work for somebody else, I would expect that to be included. And what's to say things aren't going to change? Something happens to my wife's job or something else, and we no longer have that coverage. If that cost is not being accounted for, I'm not going to have the money accrued to pay for it to have those services going forward. With that said, that applies for everything here. In the spreadsheet, there are other categories you can add stuff. Every business is a little bit different. There may be some things I'm not accounting for here, but all in all, this is to cover what does it cost to run your business before you actually make a sale. If you do not have something in here, you need to put something in. You are doing a disservice to yourself and to the financial viability of your company if you don't account for it and you don't charge it. No other business would do that for you. You should not be doing that through your business for your clients because they don't care. It doesn't make a difference. You need to have this stuff accounted for. This is the science part of the art of pricing profitably. So now that we've figured out what it costs to run your business before you make a sale, now we need to account for sales. What we need to do is we need to account for sales not based on what we've done, but what we forecast. So you're going to take your numbers from last year and extrapolate those numbers for next year. For example, if you wanted to increase your sales by 20%, then you would need to account for these costs 20% over what they were last year. So first thing we're going to start with is the employees. As I stated before, I'm broken out separately. We're going to cover separately what the owner operators payroll is going to be. This is strictly for employees. So probably maybe about 8 to 10 years ago, or excuse me, before 8 to 10 years ago, we ran payroll through my company, and we took care of it. And I had a payroll company that wrote checks, but I still had to sign them and account for all the documentation and filings and everything like that. And I came across something called a PEO. It's a professional employment organization. What that basically means is, excuse me, they are my employees, but I lease the employees through this payroll company. What that does is it takes all responsibility out of my hands and frees up all my time from having to take care of all that stuff. And although there is a cost involved in this, it is almost offset completely by savings in workman's comp coverage. So I forget the exact rate. I believe right now the payroll company charges me 2.5% of gross payroll for HR costs. But when I switched to this company, because they were able to pool my guys with thousands of other companies, they were able to negotiate workman's comp. So they actually dropped my workman's comp 1.7%. So my net costs are 0.8%. So for every $100,000 in payroll, gross payroll, only costs me $800 a year to process. And my workload is nothing more than counting up the hours on the card and submitting them in a spreadsheet to the company. And that's it. I don't do anything else from there. They're set up to deduct money directly from my account. They mail out all the checks. They do all the filings. They do all the sign-offs. Any kind of changes with the state payroll costs, there's a lot of fluctuation happening right now with what they're doing with the market to account for pandemic expenses and everything else. It's the reason I'm going into detail on this is it's, in my opinion, truly worth it to free up your time or your personnel's time, unless you're a massive operation. If you're a huge operation and you want to keep that in-house, that's your prerogative. But I highly recommend you look into it. PEO, Professional Employment Organization. So their employees cost. These are the employees when we're running full time. I also have subcontractors. We subcontract out the majority of our installs. I shouldn't say that. A lot of the work we do is we deliver only, and the builders do the install. The majority of the big jobs that we are responsible for install, I will subcontract out to. And then smaller jobs, a bathroom here or there, like one or 2 day installs we'll do in-house. But subcontractor cost is going to go in here. Health insurance, I have zero in here for the employees. The only reason I have that, going back to what I said a couple minutes ago. So we used to cover health insurance for everybody. Not to get political, but when the health insurance changed several years back, the costs were no longer manageable through the company. It doubled in 1 year. And before that had happened, I was paying 100% of employee health costs, including family plans. So what I did at that time is we calculated the costs annually for those. I gave everybody a raise for the differential, and we no longer covered health insurance, and everybody's on their own right now. So whether you run it through your company or not, if you don't run it through your company, then your employees should be compensated for that differential for them to get that on their own. They deserve it. Your company it will be charging the money to cover those expenses when you have that figured out in here. But like I said, the difference is my employee payroll cost is just higher than it would be. The total would be the same if I broke it out separately. Anyway, back into utilities, referencing what I was going before. Now that we're in production, the numbers are going to go way up through the roof. Electrical fees are going to go up. Dumpster fees are going to go up because now we're producing more waste. Excuse me. Fuel expenses. Fuel's not going to go through the roof for all our deliveries. $7,500 additional cost on the truck. Now we're maintaining the vehicles because they're breaking down, tires, brakes, batteries, all that kind of stuff. Parking tolls and tickets. We do work in New York City. We no longer install there, but we are still making deliveries. And I either have to account for parking. I can't park a big truck. I either got to account for being ticketed when I go in, or paying somebody full day rate just to sit in the truck and wait for cops to come by and move the truck so we don't get a ticket. Your market may vary. Mass transit, same thing. We may be traveling somewhere. Once a job is set up, people carpool or maybe take mass transit to a job site. We account for that. Airfare and hotel, this is bundled into vehicle expenses. This is going to be for trade show expenses, travel expenses, getting training, going off site somewhere, needing to pay for yourself. Just like all the other costs we talked about, none of these should be zero. It doesn't need to be these numbers. You need to have something in there. So if and when the time comes and you do want to get training or send somebody somewhere for that, that money's accounted for. Sharpening services. So my shop's, what are we, about 8,000 square foot. So we process a lot of hardwoods. That's why, hence the name of the company, Millwork and More. We do case goods and a lot of hardwood. So sharpening services is fairly high. Booth filters, consumables we're going to go through, maintain fire suppression. So not only do we get inspected annually, but I need to have the fire maintenance company come out and do the service. And I need to check the pressures and retag and all that kind of stuff. So there's a cost involved in that. Forklift propane and maintenance. This is actual operations, average out over a year. Equipment rental, that $500 in there is specifically for vehicle rentals. On average, we're probably 2 or 3 days a year where something's going on with one of the delivery trucks where we can't use it. It's in for service, where we need to rent a truck, and you need to account for that. If it hasn't happened yet, you got to put the numbers in there because it is going to happen eventually. Locksmith, we change the locks every time. If a employee gets rotated in and out, everybody gets new keys. Chemical waste, our spray booth, we produce a lot of waste, so that would be the chemical waste removal. Water cooler, food. So we provide, not a lot, but we provide snacks and drinks for the employees. This is a little sidebar with this. Not that you have to. This is something just in observations through the years being in the shop and noticing, especially in the afternoons, middle of the day, between lunch and the end of the day, people were walking away from their workstations more often to use the bathroom or grab something to drink or grab a snack. So I decided to stock that stuff. So they took less time doing it. Actually, it cost me less money to provide those services than to have these guys go around and search for them. And we actually go, I don't do it anymore because I'm early at the shop, but it's available for them. But I actually literally used to walk around in the middle of the afternoon and walk around with an armful of stuff and hand stuff out so people could continue to work. It's just small token for the employees, little employee boost, and definitely paid itself off cumulatively. Entertainment expenses, this would be tied into marketing. When I do market, I usually host events at my shop, networking events. So this would be covering costs for food and drinks to provide a free event. Business cards, brochures, mailers. Don't really have a whole lot of printed media right now. Do have business cards, but you need to account for something. Could be email blasts or something like that instead. Trade show costs. I used to do a bunch of trade shows. I was in pretty much every association known to man in the building industry. I left that in there. We don't do it right now only because just from personal experience, I found that typically the people who have enough time to, or builders, architects, or designers who have time to go to trade shows are not the ones who have a ton of business. If you're in that business and you're really busy, you don't spend a whole lot of time at trade shows networking. It's just not necessary. So we got out of that. Postage costs, this is going to be not job specific costs. This is going to be for mailing out prints, receiving, sending out samples, something like that. If there is some extraordinary costs involved with a specific job, those costs would be added specifically onto their job costs. But it's good to have a blanket coverage for everything else operational in the business. Consumables. Smalls, paper clips, not job related stuff, not in the shop stuff, but office related stuff. Paper clips, paper, ink, all the kind of consumables that go in the office that are small that accumulate over the year into very large amounts of money. Physical checks, deposit ledgers printed out. These costs are going to be going down. Everything's going digital. I mean, I probably write maybe 10 checks a year now at this point. Everything else is auto pay or electronically done. Every business is different. And then shipping for the office. that's actually, I misspoke before about the postage. This would now be shipping, would be sending out prints, sending out samples. Excuse me, postage is just going to be for regular billing kind of stuff, regular mail. So this is now operating expenses. This is what your costs are that now the business is going through. This is the second part of the scientific part of the art of pricing profitably. This and the previous screen are all factual cost. None of these, no, I shouldn't say none of these. Some of these are zero, like I just explained, you don't do them. But everything needs to be accounted for, whether you're doing them now or you want to do them. Remember, we are now forecasting for the future. You need to have a number in there. If you don't have a number in there, you're not billing them into your hourly rate to your clients to get the money into your pocket to then pay for it. And if that's not the case, that means you're now paying for it out of your own personal pocket, which is not what we want to be doing. Grab your pen and paper again and jot this note down. How many of you know how much you have invested in your operation and charge every customer to recoup that investment? If you do not know what you have invested and you do not charge your customers for the investment, how do you get paid back for your principal investment cost? This is, I have it listed as number 4. This is probably the 4th biggest reason that most companies don't make an actual personal profit. Based on doing this presentation many times over the past 10 years, even though we're not together, I already know the answer to this question. The vast majority of you have no clue how much money you have invested in your company. You have no clue if you were to have a complete loss, what it would take to get your business back up and running as fast as possible, knowing that you don't have the luxury of time. You don't have, I've been in business for over 20 years, so I had the luxury of over time waiting for the right deal to come across the table, buying at auctions, getting trade show specials, finding friends that own shops who were upgrading and buying their machines direct from them. So when you account for what it costs for your operation, you need to actually physically go out in your shop and your office and your vehicles and everything, and you need to write down what your current replacement cost is. Replacement cost would be what it would take for you, not your used machine, not the depreciated cost, what it would cost for you to buy something comparable, equal to, or better than what you have right now and be up and operational, knowing that you got to buy through a machinery dealer or directly from a manufacturer, whatever it's going to be, what the current costs are, not what the depreciated costs are. Now, standard business practice would be this investment cost would be depreciated over 5 years. So that's what we have calculated here in the upper left, what the inflation rate is. Like I said, this was done a couple years ago. The average inflation rate may be slightly different, but this is the inflation rate over at least a 20-year period. So it will fluctuate, but 2 to 2.25% would be the rate. In the spreadsheet you have or you're going to get, these numbers are going to be filled in, and then you're going to fill in the other numbers. So even though your actual investment cost, and in this example here is $894 at the end of a 5-year period, it would cost me $944,000 to buy everything because of that inflation. With that said, this is actually from a couple years ago. My operation expenses now is almost $1.1 million replacement cost. Now, when we go that, I put down everything virtual. That means there's things that you did that either you did or hired somebody to do that are intangible, that you're when you're walking around, you're not going to see, you're not going to be able to put your hands on it. You need to account for it. That's going to be things like electrical setup. You have the electrical materials you bought, but then there's the actual cost to hire an electrician or do it in-house if you happen to have that skill set and it's legal for you to do that in your area. Same is going to go for airlines and for dust collection, those kind of things. Now, initially, remember, I told you about all these mistakes, everything I did. I never accounted for any of this kind of stuff. And I never understood why I never made money, because I was always buying something or upgrading something. But these were things when I was working in the shop and I was younger, I'd do a lot of these things myself. And, on the weekend, grab a couple beers and do a little work in the shop. And I didn't care about it because, I enjoyed it and it didn't make a difference. But that's not reality. You need to break out this mystique of woodworking and the love of the industry and all that kind of stuff from the fact of it's a business and it needs to be accounted for. So you're going to account for this hiring out other people to do everything, not your employees, not yourself. And when you have time here and there, what would it cost in 90 days to replace absolutely everything in your business? Website, the bottom one is branding. So through the years, I've hired professional marketing people to create logos and copyright and things for my websites. It's not the actual website cost, but the things that it costs to create my branding, my image. Air system is going to be the pipe, the compressor, and the labor to put it in. Office expenses. This is everything. This is your chairs, your desks, your lights, the stapler, the staple puller, the things that are $1. You need to add all these things up. I guarantee you, for those of you who haven't done this before, and like I said, I know it's the majority of you, you are going to be absolutely shocked when you add all this up and you realize how much money you have invested in your company. And if you have not been accounting for it, and it has not been, that means it's not been being charged through your billings to clients as either your hourly rate or your markup on top of everything else to recoup this money. And that's why this is the number 4 reason. Out of the top 4 reasons that you don't make money, this is one of the biggest ones there is. You absolutely must do this. You must do this right away, and you must start billing for this right away. The reason you need to do this is not only do you need to recoup that, but the reality is nothing's going to last forever. It needs to be replaced. It needs to be upgraded. I have some of my old millwork machines go back to the 50s. Now, I was very fortunate that they lasted this long, but there's still maintenance costs that are involved in that. I buy a lot of used machinery without warranties, so there's a lot of heavier cost maintenance that come in. I'm very fortunate to have somebody in-house that can take care of that, but it still needs to be accounted for, those maintenance costs. So whether you do it in-house, you pay a professional, or it's covered in your purchase cost and the warranty, it still needs to be accounted for. If you don't bill for this, you're not going to make money if you don't to invest in the machines, to maintain the machines and buy new, because I don't care if you're open 1 month, 1 year, 10 years, or 30 years. Nobody's shop is the same now as it was last year or 5 years ago or 10 years ago. It constantly gets improved. It constantly gets new stuff put in there, and you need to charge money for this to invest it back in. Now, from a standard accounting practice, money would be taken out of what would be considered the business profit, but it's not a profit when the cost goes right back into the business, okay? It may be called a profit, but it's not a personal profit. This money will never hit your pocket and stay there. It may hit there temporarily, but it's going to need to go back into the business at one time or another. And if you don't account for it and you don't bill this, that means when something goes down or you need the new upgrade, you're again going to be paying out of pocket. Not only not making a profit, you're going to be losing money by not accounting for this and having to pay for it. It must be done. So that's it for this first part. Make sure you have checked off on your calendar part 2 and also part 3, which is going to be the Q&A session. Also, if you do not have it, make sure you send an email to director@cabinetmakers.org and get your copy of the spreadsheet. So hopefully in advance of the next session, or definitely before the Q&A session, you get to take everything we just discussed and put your own numbers in there. When you do get the spreadsheet, there's going to be more tabs on there that we haven't got to yet. That's going to be part of the part 2. Take care. I'll see you next time.